Monica, thank you so very much for being here. This is a dream come true. I think that I've been willing and desiring and following your career for so long. It's honestly a pleasure to have you on stage. For all of you that know how important it is to have Latinas in high representation, Monica Hill is here, one of the highest, if not the highest, Latina leader in a media company. How much we have heard of that yesterday, how important it is. Thank you so much. So, Monica, the pandemic has been so hard on all of us, but on Latina community in particular, it's been really, really disproportionately affecting us. How are Latinas' feelings right now? What are they pessimistic, having been through so much, or optimistic for a brighter future, in your opinion?
Thank you, Claudia. Thank you for having us here and for bringing this topic to the forefront, and wonderful to see so many friends from the past. You know, the pandemic, you're exactly right. The pandemic has disproportionately hit Latinos at levels that we wish we wouldn't see. We recently did a survey that asked Latinas how they were feeling about the pandemic, and we found that 1 in every 4 Latinas have lost someone as a result of the pandemic. We also understand that Latinas have been dealing with financial hardships. 6 out of 10 Latinas indicated that the pandemic has caused that. But despite that, what Latinas are telling us is that we are resilient. And if Perla didn't demonstrate that right now when you came up, I don't think there's anyone else that can. The reality is that Latinas are optimistic. One of the things we're finding is that we are hearing from many that despite the pandemic, despite all the challenges, that they're very optimistic about the future. They're very optimistic about the way the country is moving in the right direction. And it's no longer that they are looking from the outside trying to get in. They feel that they are now in, and they have made it, and that they can continue to make it. We're seeing great numbers in the areas of education. In the last 20 years, Latinas have increased their degrees now by 173%. So that's very encouraging. And in the labor force just last year, we saw that Latinas, despite the pandemic, was the highest rate of women moving into managerial jobs. So it's a good time for us, and I think that our future is bright.
And I'm feeling the momentum. You know, yesterday there were, I'm going to say, like, in every session, there was a conversation about Latinas. And there was a conversation about, like, it's getting into the agenda, it's getting into people's minds. We heard also, for example, in the Edelman Trust Barometer, that we are not only optimistic, but actually, to my surprise, that we're demanding, that we're coming and we're feeling every time more empowered to go and knock the door, and maybe we don't bark or bite, but we go and we say, like, hey, do you know, it is time for a change. So I'm looking forward to giving more space for discussion of Latinas, more space to understanding that we're optimistic and that we're empowered so we can make the change. So this is great. So tell me about, we spoke a lot yesterday about perception as being one of the top areas that is a pain point for the community and the leaders that were here. We're fed up with being invisible. We're fed up to be, you know, like a stereotyped and cliche to someone we're not. So let's talk about misconceptions, and this is an important area for you being, you know, like in a media company. So, but misconceptions of Latinas today. How can we, Hispanic leaders, change those misconceptions? And what would you suggest that we can do? You have an incredible amount of media leaders as well as Maria Elena Salinas. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Jorge Plasencia. Thanks for bringing us here. So, Monica, misconceptions. What can we do?
You know, let me just first say, Latinas are going to save America. Make no mistake about it. We're going to save America. So let's start there. I think the misconceptions are things that we've all heard. I mean, we've experienced it in our careers, in our lives, in our journeys. I think the first misconception that there really is about Latina women in general is that we're all the same. And I think marketers have a very hard time distinguishing that. So the reality is that we're actually we come in different hues, we speak different languages, but we share one thing in common, and that's our determination and our grit and the ability to progress. So there's a misconception that we're all the same, and it's important if you're a marketer, if you're a brand, to be able to be specific so that you can be more authentic, and as well that you can create a sense of belonging for Latinas. The second thing that I would point out is that, you know, it's not, when it comes to language, it's not either or, it's and. And I'm going to repeat that. Not either or, it's and. Because clients and people get so mixed up on the language. The reality is we don't have to choose. And Spanish isn't going away. Spanish is... You know, for me, Spanish is not a foreign language in the United States. It's the second most spoken language in this country, so it's not going away, and we don't have to be forced to choose anymore. And I think the third thing that I would say in general, not just about Latinas, but Hispanics in general, is that we're not all concentrated in the South, and that we are growing in areas, we're everywhere, not just in California, not just in Texas, but the highest rate percentage of Latinos growing was actually in North Dakota. So you're seeing that we're going throughout the entire country, so we're progressing, and we're more and more increasingly US born.
And we heard actually from yesterday from Stacey Darmas Nielsen that she was literally advocating for more Spanish media, more investment in Spanish television media, pretty much like to the point of that, because that's where we can start building a better perception of ourselves by seeing each other and seeing our culture as not shameful, but actually something to have pride.
40% of households still speak Spanish. So that's, I think, something that's very important that marketers and advertisers need to continue to hear.
I mean, even I was blown away with the census where 80% of the population, 80% of 62 million people are bilingual. That's great. I mean, like you wish that America would have that, right? Like the entire country would be bilingual and would be more cultivated and have more resources and everything. So you released recently a poll, an important poll about the perception of Latinas. Insights, why is it so important to understand the Latina sentiment right now? Why did you want to publish with those results?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason we did a study, we conducted a study of 1,600 women throughout the nation, and the reason we did the study is because, A, we needed everybody to know about us and to see us as we are, and not as past perceptions have expected us to be or behave. But also, when you think about Latina women, there's 62 million Latinos, about 31 million are Latinas. 65% of Latina women are under the age of 40. These are the new American soccer moms. So any company that wants to grow needs to advertise, they need to invest in Latinas, because this is the future consumer, the future soccer moms that are going to be spending on their products.
So say that again, that number again?
65% of all Latinas in this country are under the age of 40.
That's why we look young, because we're young.
Yeah, that's not me, but the majority.
No. That's crazy. Yeah. Like, because it's women that actually, like, I don't want to deviate the topic, but it is women that make most of the purchasing decisions at home. It is us who buy for the children, it is us who buy for the household, it is us who make all the purchasing decisions. So marketers of the world, pamper us, don't go only for our wallet, go for our heart, go for our future. Yeah. If you want us, because if you don't want us, you're probably going to be out of business anyways.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So on the insights, and I just want to share with you some pieces that we heard yesterday. I think we heard even yesterday, like 3 or 4 different polls and surveys on perception. And I think it's very, very important that if we join forces, we understand that we have every single piece of tool and asset that we need to really build an intelligent perception mapping changer, right? Like we know if you have this result, and there was Stacey Darmas who has also the results of Latinas feeling as consumers, I think that we have enough. So I feel very optimistic about what can we do really to break through our perception if we join forces. Monica, I want to get into into the findings because they're fascinating. What are some of the key insights that stood up for you and that you would like to highlight more today, more than what you have done already?
Yeah, I think there's maybe about four or five that I think are important. One, I think the first thing, and you kind of touched on it, Latinos are creators of wealth. If you hear, we've heard that $1 trillion number of purchasing power in the United States multiple times, and I'm sure you've heard it throughout the conference. But Latinas command the lion's share of that. 86% of the purchasing decisions in a household are made by Latina women. So Latina women are increasingly becoming the breadwinners in their homes. At the same time, what you're seeing is that Latinas now, when they're not just creating wealth for others, they're creating their own wealth. 50% of women under 50 are homeowners. They own their own house. And yeah, that's a great stat, right? I saw that one, Dr. Andrade, and I was really pleased. But what's even more encouraging is that women between 35 to 39 plan to purchase their own home in the next 3 years. So the pandemic isn't affecting that mentality. The second thing is that they are reaching financial independence on their own. It's something like 36% indicated that they wanted to invest in stocks and bonds. And I think the last thing I would say is that they're also investing in their children's education now. So it's not just about hoping to go to college. They kind of assume that their children are going to go. So they're already saving. 50% of women said they're already saving or plan to save for their children's college education. So that's important. The second thing that we understood about Latinas and we found out is that they're stewards of what I believe is justice. And what does that mean? It's been a tough year. We've all been through this very, very tough year. But Latinas, because of the toughness that they've had to go through, they really have a sense of urgency to create equality for their communities. They have indicated that some of the most important items for them right now are issues of violence, addressing issues of violence or domestic violence. Unfortunately, a third of them indicated that they were victims of domestic violence. And something like 30% also indicated that they had faced discrimination. But what that does is it empowers us. It injects energy in us to act. And that was encouraging. The other thing I'd say is that they're powerhouses of their industry. If you want to grow your business, you're going to grow it with Latinas. Latinas now are yes, absolutely, right? You know, Latinas, one of the things that we found is that Latinas now in their business and in their industries, they are growing more and more. But what's happening is if you think about businesses, there's about 5 million Latino businesses. 40% of them are by Latina women. And if you're foreign-born, you're twice as likely to create your own business. So Latina entrepreneurship is great. I'm convinced, you know, that do you guys know the little beauty, the little egg-shaped beauty bar that you use? A Latina created that. So you can see that they're independent. And I'm convinced that we created Spanx and avocado toast, but I don't have any proof of that. Yeah, I don't have proof.
Yes.
But you all remember Faja Reducidora. That was us, I'm sure. And just two other quick things. We're influencers of elections. And the reason I say this one is very important is because if you think about presidential elections, most of them are either won or lost on about 5 million votes. Latinas make up 16 million votes. So if you're only losing it on about 5 million, you actually really should bet on Latinas to try to make sure that you are engaging them and as a candidate, reaching out to them. And the last thing I just say is they're forces of progress. It's never been a better time to be Latina. We love being bilingual. We love being bicultural. And we own it.
And data is powerful. That data. Look, and data is powerful, and it's really encouraging, but we need to make it actionable. We need to transform that data into how the hell are we going to use it for everyone here to break through so that Latinas have a better world today, tomorrow, starting today, so that tomorrow there's absolutely a new future for our young daughters. So how are we going to do that? Data to make it more actionable for all of us here.
Data is incredibly important because anecdotes don't get us the numbers that we need. And we all know the anecdotes, but data proves your point. I think we've all heard if it's measured, you are able to get, yes.
What doesn't get measured doesn't get done, Dr. Juan Andrade would say.
Yeah, and I also say what measured gets improved. Because what you have to do with the data is you constantly have to continue to improving it. The data out there right now currently, it sometimes doesn't even include ethnic breaks, much less does it determine language. They're leaving money on the table if they don't use the data and constantly correcting it. So it's really important for all of you to demand accurate data and to make sure that clients and your businesses are continuing to use it and also create primary research and primary data.
Monica, I obviously don't want to put you on the spot, but I've been putting everyone on the spot because I think that all of us have such an incredible story just because of the data. And so what I'm asking all of us is to become a factivist, to become data-driven individuals that come into any dinner, into any conversation with our boss, with our church, with ourselves, and say, did you know that Latinos are 12% of the, did you know that Latinas generate small businesses 6 times faster than any other group, so that we ourselves can start thinking of Latinos as big, as powerful, as contributors, as stars. So I want to make sure that that data that we have, it's used also in the media, like through media channels and all across, so that we can join forces. And again, all of us becoming owners of our data as the driver for our future. So I would love to join forces with you and see how can we actually just like get the entire media industry on it.
We'd love to do it. I love data, and I believe that you have to continue to use it. And also, data also tells you stories you don't want to hear, but that's a gift.
Yes. So what about corporate America? So mobilizing corporate America is the theme of today. Why is it so important for corporate America? And why is it such an important partnership for Hispanics so that we can actually break through?
Yeah, because if you want to grow your business, you cannot grow with the fastest growing population. Latinos have led 50% of the growth in the last 10 years. If you're not investing in this, you are leaving money on the table. But secondly, for me, I think being Latino is incredibly important. You get money in Spanish and you get it in English. That's a competitive advantage.
So one of the many hats that you have is leading marketing. And so we're going to move into the next panel. But as a CMO, a roundtable panel, I have to ask you any takeaways you have for the marketers in particular. What guidance do you have for marketing leaders trying to mobilize better support Latinas? We're going to have, like a very important role, I think, as CMOs in the future. We were looking at yesterday, Monica, we had if you want a couple of strategic meetings, like a meeting on strategic actions that we can take as a community. And if we start borrowing from other communities, like thinking the African American community decided we should go after human resources or procurement so that we can actually hire or, or buy our suppliers. I truly believe that given the creativity of our community, given that we already have like so many incredible Hispanic stars in CMO roles, Mark Pritchard, Antonio Lucio, Diego Scotti, and so on, I would put all my money on the table to procure scholarships so that we can have the next generation of CMOs being absolutely dominated by Latinos. So what is the role of CMOs in all of this? And what would be your message for the panel of incredible CMOs coming up for everybody listening today?
Yeah, marketing plays such a critical role, and my friend and counterpart, Jorge Plasencia, and I have talked a lot about this, and the reality is that we have a responsibility to get it right. And it's a responsibility as a marketer to make sure that narratives are inclusive of the diversity of Latinos across. But at the same time, you can't be a good marketer if you don't have Latinos in the room. So for all the companies out there, if you're going to create content about us, you need to let us have a conversation about it. Secondly, the thing that needs to happen when it comes to marketers, a lot of times marketing and companies, they'll put money against a campaign. But is that equal to the money or the campaign that they're putting for non-Latino campaigns? So you have to invest and put the proper amount of funding around campaigns for Latino products, Latino causes, because if you don't do that, then you're not giving it a fair chance, and you give up on literally having another product because they think that it didn't work. So that's really important. And I think the last thing that I say on this, marketing campaigns, when you think about content creation right now, there's so much content. COVID has accelerated the use of content. There's so much more opportunity for Latino content. It's really important that the content, when you're talking about Latinos, we created a Latina storytelling guide so that it could provoke a conversation, so that it can also make us more prevalent and progressive. And by progressive, I mean our characters, that they evolve with us as a community. So I really encourage marketers to include us in the room to make sure that we have a voice on it. And it doesn't mean just having one of us. You can put 5 or 10 of us in the room, and that's okay.
And that's amazing. I again, as the optimist as I am, seeing the leadership of NBC Telemundo with a big commitment of Cesar Conde of having 50% of your company being diverse, it gives me hope that having 5 or 6 of companies of your size, with your power, your commitment, the leadership commitment, we will actually be able to be the last generation of Latinos that is not seen, not heard, not valued, and that we can open up the door and generate enough change so that the next generation, not 3 generations from now, the next generation is fully paid, fully recognized, and fully valued. I cannot ask for anyone better to have in this panel that like a true star, Hispanic star of marketing, someone I admire for a long time, Monica Hill, Chief Marketing Officer of Telemundo. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give it to Monica.
Yes.